Are you searching for a church to call home or a ministry to get involved with? Welcome to Ministry Connections. I'm Evangelist Patrick Hoban, your host and a local ministry director here at AM 980 The Mission. Now, each week we introduce you to a local church or ministry that is making an impact here in the Twin Cities. Now, you can listen to past programs on our YouTube or Facebook pages. Just look for AM 980 The Mission. Now, this is the second interview with my special guest, Dr. Marcus Bachmann of Counseling Care. Now, in the first interview, we talked a little bit about, counseling in general and Christian counseling, why it's so important, and as a tool of the Holy Spirit to bring people to a sense of freedom and also wholeness. Would that be correct?
That's exactly right. It's an honor to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to share from a Christian perspective the importance and value of counseling. And maybe particularly we can talk today about counseling for men.
Absolutely, doctor. Being a man, being around men, I always equate men to cats. They like to be alone. But men, when they're going through tough times, they isolate themselves.
They do.
Why is that?
Oh, we have from a very young age directed ourselves toward we need to be tough. We need to be strong in our whatever it is, athletics and academics and winning and competition. And there's a whole sense, and often it's mentored from our father. Our fathers don't typically, in the past, especially the World War II type fathers, share much of their feelings, share any of their struggles. So if a boy hears and sees and is mentored by his father and notices that, maybe his mother does that, but maybe that's more for women, for girls, he really senses that's not my job. That's first of all, an expertise I don't have. I don't even have to think about it. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be a doer, which is the most popular thing for a man. And I'm very careful here. I don't want to criticize because men do need to provide. They do need to win wars. They need to accomplish, but that shouldn't be at the soul of who they are. And I think for many, often our culture has criticized men as being the doers and the providers and so forth, but the hindrance psychologically is that they become silos, separate, isolated, and that's dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Especially when they go through trial, and our society pushes them down and blames them oftentimes. Now, in your practice, and you've seen maybe tough guys, different kinds of personalities, how does that mix work? Does all men have similar problems or situations that they have to deal with? Speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I won't blanket statements, everything for men, but I would just say that, it takes often for a man some time to develop a sense that they can trust you, that, you as a counselor are in it not just because you're being paid, but it's because you sincerely care. Mm. And if someone really has a sense that you're safe, that you're just not going to throw something at them, that even if they share with you something pretty ugly, pretty disgraceful, if you come across with a real sense of grace to them, they're going to be able to share, open up more. But it's courageous for anyone to come into counseling, but especially for men to come into counseling. And I will say this is probably going to sound confusing, but here goes. When it comes to marriage counseling, men don't have a strong advantage because often they don't know what they feel as much as a woman knows what they feel. They may not even think through why this is going on in their marriage for difficulty. And the woman can verbalize quite easier than a man can. So the man almost feels like he's at a disadvantage when it comes to marriage counseling. And that's why I believe that individual counseling for men is such an important factor. so that they can learn some tools, they can understand who they are more, and they can even understand that there's more of a realm than just the one feeling that they have, which is typically anger or depression, but typically it's anger. So the value of men coming in for their one-on-one counseling can be a tremendous asset for them individually, and if they're in a relationship, for that relationship also.
Yeah, and I think a lot of men, I know for me, and other men that I know, they just kind of go, I'll just tough it out.
Oh, that is so, Patrick, that is the way men react. They just, if something bad happens, even if it's something as serious as the loss of a child, they think, I need to get over it. You know what? I need to keep going here. And I think I'll just tell you this, that philosophy, that dangerous philosophy, people leak. They leak out with, afterwards, it doesn't matter if it's a few weeks, a few months, a few years, they leak out with sadness and anger and unresolved and confusion and a lack of identity. They properly, because, for instance, by loving someone and you lose that person through whatever way, divorce or death or whatever, that is a valuable emotional process that deserves some grieving. If we don't grieve properly, we'll pay for it.
That is so, I like that phrase, we leak. And here's a question for you then. If a guy says, I'm just going to tough it out, and maybe he does for a while.
Oh, he can for a while, yes.
And then later on, it could be a year, 2 years down the road, he doesn't understand why he's acting something out.
Yes.
Would that be true? Absolutely.
And the most dangerous part to that is, and I'll just say it, the most dangerous part is this is the enemy's territory. The enemy loves a man to be in confusion, a man not to know his purpose, a man to become so much in a dark pit. The suicide rate for men is so much higher than it is for women. It is partly because, sadly enough, men are going to accomplish it. They're going to get the job done. They will commit suicide. But that's the enemy's territory for someone who is siloed, separated, and unable someday, that they never have that process of getting through what is it that hurt, damaged, caused trauma for their life. Obviously, I'm not saying that all that will end up in suicide. That's the worst case scenario. But what another worst case scenario is that they stay in that pit. They're not able to do what God has called them to do. And that's a not only a sad reflection, or you get the opposite. You get men that just stay busy and they don't look up. They just work and work and work and work, and they think, they get a lot done, but they have missed the mark of doing what God has called them to do.
That is so powerful. And, when we talk about the enemy, we're talking about the evil one, the wicked one. We're talking about the dark forces. It is both, our soul and the spiritual world together. I do know a chap, he's a former veteran, and he has a ministry to veterans. And you know what his job is? He says, I want to just get him out of the basement.
Yes.
And I think we might not be in the basement, well, we might be in the basement of our minds, our spirits.
Yeah. And you would think that that would be something that would be understood for a man to be, I'm in the basement. But they can actually convince themselves, this is life, this is the way it's supposed to be, this is what I deserve, or there's nothing better. So they stay there without even understanding that they're really in the basement sometimes.
So let's speak to that too. This is what I deserve. Do men have the propensity then to blame themselves if they can't tough it out? Or what's going on there?
It's actually blaming themselves or blaming someone else. The grudge holding, the unforgiveness, I think, is a powerful tool that the enemy uses. By the way, can you imagine going to a secular counselor and having this conversation? They'd actually be writing down some things for your diagnosis, versus a Christian counselor who would say, yes, there is an enemy, and the enemy does play with us. The enemy does a job of causing or creating us to go into that dark hole. I think this is an incredibly important integration approach of understanding we fight a fight with the enemy, and the enemy is real. And he will especially not let go of someone who's going to be productive for the kingdom work.
Interesting. And we have an enemy, we have a savior, and he
Yes.
gets people like you with certain giftings to bring about that healing.
Yeah.
Now, men, I know a lot of guys, and I think it's better now than what it used to be.
Oh, there's no question. I mean, in my practice about 40 years ago, it was probably 80-20. 80% women came to counseling, 20% males. Now, it's almost evening out. That's good news.
That is good news.
That men are not. There still is some hesitation. There still is some confusion. I don't want to minimize that, but it has changed dramatically. The sad part about it is we have more and more men today that have the issues that were not as strong before, because pornography is number one for the addiction issue. And the reason is the obvious. It's at the touch of a phone, that someone doesn't have to walk into an adult bookstore. They've got it right there. And once they start, and often they start at a young age, it becomes a cycle that they can't break. I'm sorry, I just got into the subject of pornography, and I didn't mean to without you asking the question.
No, that's fine, because I was just at a church, Grace Church, on Sunday, and he talked about, Proverbs chapter 5, which is about the whole sexuality of a man. I think also, too, loneliness is so prevalent today, right? So even if a man is trying to walk with God, there's nothing there to help him. How can counseling help an individual like that?
This is where the church gets involved in my counseling ministry. I really believe, and sometimes I ask the person who is struggling with loneliness or depression, I say, so tell me what's involved in your church for ministries. Is there a men's Bible study? Is there a men's support group? Is there, we have everything from Celebrate Recovery to, a number of different men's group in the Twin Cities and all over the United States that they can plug into. And here's where I get a little bit tough. You might think I've been talking about this rightfully so in a grace-filled way, but I also get tough with guys. And I say, you have a decision to make. Are you going to do something about this? Are you going to take some steps? Are you going to do the homework assignments? We can agree on which ones you think fit, but are you going to do it? And I will hold you accountable. Have you called the church? Have you asked to belong to the men's Bible study ministry? What are you doing? God is a God of hope in that process.
Powerful words of wisdom. Real quickly, Doctor, your website where people can contact you or your ministry.
counselingcare.us.
counselingcare.us. You've been listening to Ministry Connections. If you have not listened to the first interview with my guest, Dr. Marcus Bachmann, please do. You can check us out on our YouTube and Facebook pages and listen to past programs. Until next time, we bid you adieu, and God bless.